you saved my life. I'm on the road. I was on the road every night with a band. There was no future. I was getting older with a lot of commitments. And quite honestly, if you hadn't come along in '84 with Terminal 3...
No, Linda, I'm going to clarify this in your head. I gave you a song. I gave you a really good song, and I knew it had a great chance of winning. I knew this. I said it to you at the time, that I think we could win the Eurovision with this song. But I didn't sing it. You sang it.
Hi, I'm Linda Martin, and this series of Dog Almighty is brought to you by Tesco. So for a happy and healthy pet, shop online or in store at the Tesco Pet Shop. Today, I'm catching up with a very, very close friend called Johnny Logan, and he's going to be talking all things Eurovision, obviously, but he's also going to be talking about his brother Mick, who died just a few months ago, and Johnny's dealing with the grieving process, so just listen up. Today, I have the honour of sitting down with one of my bestest friends, my saviour, a true icon in the world of music, a man whose voice has echoed across continents and in my ears, and whose name is synonymous with Eurovision success. Please join me in welcoming the one and only Johnny Logan.
Lonnie Jogan.
Lonnie Jogan. You know, we were chatting away there, and I did see you over Christmas, obviously, because you came into the pantomime. Yeah. And you were saying that the last panto you saw was with Maureen Potter.
No, I was in the pantomime.
You were in it.
I was the woodcutter in. And what was it in Red Riding Hood?
Oh God!
I was awful. I was never cut out to do any like pantomimes or musicals, even though I did them, because I never had the discipline to to go on stage every night and do the same show, and I used to get bored really, really quickly.
Right.
So it was, but I loved working with Maureen. I always remember, she'd be standing on the side of the stage, and she used to memorise all of the people's names, all these people celebrating birthdays and these things. And she just she'd come on without a piece of paper. She'd have photographic memory, and she'd come on and she'd rattle off all the names.
Wow!
And like I said, but she was a great person to learn from. And she was kind of like a mother hen to me. To be honest, she was really lovely. I loved her.
That's good. That's good. I can remember going back to that era. You in a loincloth. And nothing else.
You're going back to Adam and Eve.
No, I'm going back to Joseph out in Goffs. Do you remember?
God, that was Joseph. I remember.
Yeah.
I was the only. All the brothers were gay. I remember that. I was the only straight one of them. I remember that. And I sort of, and I remember. The fun when you mentioned the loincloth, first musical I came into, I'd been working as an apprentice electrician in Narber Hill.
Oh God!
And I'd come off building sites, and Alan D had written a musical called Adam and Eve, and Colin Wilkinson was playing the devil in it.
Wow!
So I'd seen Colin as Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar, and I was very moved by his performance, and I really wanted to work with him. So I did it. But I went from being on a building site, carrying toolboxes and to wearing a chamois leather cloth, which had a Velcro on the side of it, and a green swimsuit, which Bella Knox, if you remember Bella,
I do,
from the theatre, Bella, who was in charge of wardrobe, Bella had filed down a big plastic leaf and put it on the front of the costume, which was supposed to represent Adam and Eve, but it was never quite filed down enough, and I ended up walking like John Wayne.
Yeah, I remember that night, Johnny. I'll be calling you Johnny for the rest of this interview because I know you're Sean, obviously, but for the benefit of the listeners, they're going to say, who's she talking to? So I keep it Johnny. But I remember one of the nights we all went, so it was Louis Walsh, myself, God knows who else, and your brother, Mick, had a car. So we all...
My mother's Audi, probably.
It was a big car.
Yeah,
and we all squeezed in.
Yeah,
there was no such thing as a seatbelt or a little bit of personal space. We were in. And away we went down that nice dual carriageway like a bat out of hell. And honest to God, just great memories, though. Great memories.
I says, well, if that's the only memory you got to make, you're cut off lightly. There's a lot of memories of Mick, people.
Yeah. So take me back. If you can remember this, of course, I do. But let's see. Where did we first meet?
I think we met, like I said, you probably don't remember this, but I think you were playing in a gig. It was either in it was somewhere in Kerry. It was I think it was Kerry. And I came to see the band. I came to watch the band, and I came and said hello after the gig. And back in that day, I think it was Nicola Kerr.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
the other singer. And the two of you, like, sort of, were the singers with the band. And I just, and then as when Louis took over my management, I got to meet you through Louis in the office in Harcourt Street?
Hawkins Street.
Hawkins Street.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's God, like so. And then, and you were, I always remember, like, chips were Louis' main thing. I always knew that whatever happened, chips were going to be looked after first, and then
no, but that might have been for a little while.
Oh, no, that was for a long time.
Do you know when I remember us meeting in the Bailey in Dublin?
Oh God, that the Bailey was the pub in those days.
And I can remember you sitting there and we're chatting away and we're meeting up and doing all the usual things.
The Bailey was like the pub that all the, the Bailey and the Brussels.
Yes.
Both of those, like, sort of, were the places people used to meet in, and it's changed a lot now. I think, like, if you go to the Bailey now, it's not the Bailey that it was back then, because, like, sort of those days, all the musicians would gather, especially on a Monday night.
That's right.
Because we'd finish on a Sunday, and if you were playing close enough, you'd get back in time. If not, you'd go up to was it Susie Street or something?
Somewhere like that.
And, like, sort of this.
I know.
Go and have your drinks up there and your sandwich, your toasted sandwich.
And fall home at 6 o'clock in the morning.
If you were lucky. You know, many's a time I went down to the flower market, and, like, sort of just with the people working on the buses, they'd be coming in, and I'd put my pint of beer and, like, sort of a toasted cheese sandwich
and a bunch of flowers,
just to take home to apologise to Alicia
for being out
all night.
Oh God!
You'd walk in, you'd say, "Where have you been?" And then, "Why didn't you pay the ransom?" Just, like I said, I'd just been kidnapped.
Yeah. Tell me this, Johnny. As you were all growing up, and I know your family and everything, was there ever a dog in your house?
When we were kids, yeah, my parents had it. We had a black mongrel.
Okay.
52. We used to call her Heinz 52.
Yeah.
52 different varieties, but her name was Susie.
Okay.
The black dog, and we loved her. Like, sort of, she was legendary in the family. And then afterwards, when we went to Drogheda, we had another dog there. We called it Hendrix, and Hendrix used to sit down at the river and try and catch the seagulls. He just jump off the wall and miss the seagull, land in the water, and come back out, and then back out again.
Okay. For people who don't know, your dad used to have a pub in Drogheda. Isn't that right? Yeah.
God, sorry, I forget we're talking this because we know each other so long.
Yeah. Did you ever work in it?
I worked from the time I was 12 years old.
Wow.
I used to, like, sort of. Mick went management. Mick used to dress in a white suit.
Oh, right, okay.
He'd be going out with his girlfriend and this sort of thing, and he'd be all dressed up and go to my father and say, like, everything's done, like, sort of, the money's done, the counter done, this sort of thing. I'm heading off. It's all clean downstairs, and I would still be downstairs cleaning the toilets and all this sort of stuff.
Okay.
And that was very much Mick in those days.
Okay. But did that? I don't think that ever changed with Mick.
No, not really.
No.
But he was I told my father fairly earlier on I didn't want the pub and I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't for me.
Right.
Whereas Mick wanted it, like, as a business.
Okay.
I didn't want it at all. And my father always respected me for that. I think, and I worked probably the hardest at it for him, because my dad had rheumatoid arthritis. And,
right.
And I saw the business was really affecting him and Mum. But, to be honest, we grew up in a very, very strange family where... most people and most kids, as they grow up, have an idea what they want to do, even from a career point of view. They've got goals and they've got, like, sort of ambitions. To me, every day, just, there was the next day, whatever comes. And I never had an idea what I wanted. I mean, even music, I drifted into.
How?
Well, the honest truth, the first time I found out I could sing was in the Loft. I don't know, we had a place in Stockwell Street. On West Street in Drogheda, where the pub was.
Yes.
Opposite, there was a little road on the side called Stockwell Street, and we had a place called the Loft.
Right.
And we had a Christmas party there one year, and everybody was doing their turn. And the staff said, "Your turn, Sean, sing." Whatever. Sean being Johnny.
Yeah.
And I sang Edelweiss from The Sound of Music. And I remember looking at my father, and his mouth was just open. He was going, "Where did this come from?" And it was. I think everybody was quite shocked, and then I remember being in Skerries, and I'd started learning the guitar, and I was incredibly shy, really, really shy. And Des Cullen, who was the brother of my brother-in-law,
Right.
Vincent, like sort of this,
Marion's
ex-husband, and from Des, they had a kind of a folk session,
Right.
doing all America, Horse with No Name, all this sort of stuff. And he handed me the guitar. He said, "I heard you can sing." And Ailish was sitting beside me, and Ailish, she's very, she's not from the show business.
No.
And definitely and like we were just 16, 17 years old, and I started playing Father and Son.
Okay.
And I sang the Father Son down in the key, so sang it down. But when I hit the Son's part, I sang really loudly, and the place was really noisy, and it went dead silent. And Ailish, first of all, I think she was in shock, and then she started hitting me on the leg, saying, "Sean, everybody's looking at you." And I got, because I had the eyes closed as usual, belting it out, and I hadn't realised, and I got such a shock I stopped singing, and I gave them back the guitar because I was so embarrassed that everybody was looking at me. But the thing was, the realisation was that from a situation where everybody was really loud and talking, suddenly it was dead silent, and these were strangers, these weren't friends, and things like sort of. So I obviously had something, and then, to be honest, Linda, and I don't mean this with with a big ego or whatever, but it is true that whenever I sang, I was good at it. I was a good singer, and the thing is, my ambition, luckily enough, growing up in the time of you and people and the people we grew up with, Bill Linton and all of these, was I wanted to be the best that I could be. I didn't think about being famous or anything like this. I was just trying to make a living, trying to pay the rent and all these sort of things, because I was working as an electrician during the day. And playing in Irish pubs and everything else at night, But the thing that I learned from that was fame isn't the end of the journey. The journey is actually the music itself and what you do with it. The fame comes and goes, and you know this as well. Sometimes you're famous, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're more famous than others. But if I can live without fame. But I can't live without music. As I got older.
No, I get that, and obviously, you got the voice from your father because he was a tremendous singer.
Well, that was the thing when I was singing in the pub. I sang Edelweiss. My dad would kind of, and he took me to Derry to the woman who taught him, and and he had me sing for her.
Yes.
And she started crying because she said, "You sound exactly like your father when he was your age." But I never took lessons. Dad studied opera.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did.
Was a trained singer, whereas I just drank my way through it.
Danny Boy was the party piece for both of you?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. There was one moment that's kind of that I didn't. Danny Boy was just a song. I remember with Colin Tully.
Yeah, I remember. Yes, of course.
Colin's gone now. You know that as well.
I didn't.
Colin died last year.
Oh God, I didn't know that.
The beginning of last year, I think it was, and stage 4 or 5 cancer. I think.
Sugar.
And God, don't want to bring the thing down, but Colin's gone and Shay's gone. And I think I used to sing Danny Boy when we were in Paris. I remember doing a TV show with Johnny Holiday.
Right. Okay.
The Renault show, and singing Danny Boy on that. And it was my party piece for a long time, but I think the time that meant the most to me, I have on video, but I've never really been able to watch it, was I was singing in Australia in the surface it was Seagulls Casino, and my dad had come to the gig and he was in a wheelchair, and I started singing Danny Boy, and I got off the stage and went down to him and gave him the microphone, and halfway through it he broke down. And I've never really been able to sing it properly since then.
Okay. Now, you just mentioned Colin Tully passed away. Mick, who I've known as long as I've known you, your brother.
Probably knew him sometimes better than I did.
Well, we could.
You saw the darker side of him sometimes.
Jesus, no! I just remember he was such a character.
He was.
But for what happened to him, now I know he hadn't been well.
No.
Into hospital and then COVID.
Well, Mick lived the rock and roll life.
Yes, he did.
Mick had decided this is how he wanted to live and how he wanted to die.
Yeah.
And it's very fresh still with me. So forgive me.
Let me go back. I said the wrong name there. Colin Tully.
Colin Tully, yeah.
Colin Tully. Yeah. Sorry, Johnny. Go on.
No, but Mick, had bit by bit bits of him were falling apart. And he'd hurt his back, he'd hurt his leg.
That's right.
He was starting to travel through airports in a wheelchair.
Okay.
To do gigs and things like this, which we all thought was very funny, but the band all loved him. Nobody wanted him to stop because he'd have everybody in hysterics when we were on stage. He was always slagging me. I would be the brunt of most of it at the front. But Mick would say, in a very funny way, what everybody was thinking. And most of it cannot be repeated. He'd bit by bit his health went down, and until he was kind of isolated in Manchester in his apartment. And he was still going out for a drink across the road and like sort of meeting his friends there for drinks and that. But I don't think it's any secret to say that Mick drank too much. You know, like sort of this is I stopped 18 years ago.
You did.
That's where we both the lines parted. But Mick never lost that kind of that time. You know, there was a type of character that came up around the same time as Phil Lynott and all this. Mick was one of them, and he never lost that. And he always had that great sense of humour about it. But he was in the car. He was going to he'd hurt his wrist. He'd fallen over in the room or something. And Chloe, his eldest daughter, was taking him to the hospital, and he had a heart attack in the car. Right. And she gave him CPR, kept him alive. But they kept him in a coma for a while, and very typical of Mick at the time. You know, we were in the hospital. I went over to Manchester, and I stayed in Manchester to be near him. And I decided one day there was a priest came in, and I said, will you say some? He said, will I say some prayers for him? And I said, yeah. Would you say some prayers? And the next day, a nun came in and did it. And sure enough, Mick came out of the coma. But before this, I had told him about a family member who was a bit self-righteous, that's being modest, who had been bitten by a demon during an exorcist on the elbow. And I know.
Wait a minute, I lost that a bit there.
This is that I had been told. A family member had told me about another family member, right? Not a direct family member, somebody who was married into, who had religious aspirations and who had been involved in an exorcist, right, and had been bitten on the elbow by a demon. Geez. And so when Mick came out of the coma, the first thing I said to him I said, look, I had a priest pray for you and a nun. I should tell you that now, because Mick wouldn't have been the most religious person in the world. No. And his first words to me after coming in the coma, so that's where the teeth mark came in my arse. And it was a direct reference to this. And that would have been Mick, and so this... I think, this, with the image that I had of the white suit from the Eurovision, with the life that I had with Mick, they were two contrasting, totally different images. It was very hard, because in one sense, I suppose, with that image, I was living living a lie, but I wasn't really that person that, I was the person that every mother wanted to introduce to their daughter until the daughter became... But I won't say any more about that.
No, let's move. Let's go to Eurovision now. Possibly you think the same thing as me about Eurovision today. Now, give me the truth.
Excuse me,
don't be sugarcoated.
No, I'm not going to. I've given up doing that. The reality of it is that my feeling about the Eurovision is, I always thought that the orchestra brought a whole lot of dignity and all this sort of thing, and a sense of occasion to it. I've never understood why all the money is invested in graphics, computer graphics, and that there can't be a certain amount of budget given to an orchestra for anybody who wants to use them. You're not forced to use them, but they should be there. I agree, because it enhances certain songs. But I think that. For me, what happened with the Eurovision is symptomatic of what's happened with the music industry. It morphed from the business that I grew up in, where you could actually make a living in it and everything else, into what it is today, which is X Factor, pop stars, all of these things. And what happened with the Eurovision is it's morphed into a European version of that, because it's still a huge, huge TV show, huge thing to win. But the business doesn't exist. When we won it, the newspapers all turned up, and the record companies were there, there were well-known singers taking part in it as well. And the thing is that nowadays, record companies don't they have no real interest, unless, first of all, You know, like they produce, they pay for the album themselves. They normally tell a lot of the younger artists that join, you're not going to make join a company. You're not going to make any money out of the records. You'll make it from your live gigs. And now what they've started to do is look for 360 deals where they make money out of the artist from his live work. You know, from his promotion, from his marketing, from everything. 50% from this and all these kind of things. It's gone. They've gone as far as they can. Well, maybe not. I might be speaking too soon. Towards destroying the business. Yeah. Destroy the business. I'm talking about not music, the business. They'll never destroy music because people. I used to think that music was a luxury. That you know, like sort of people would buy food and they'd pay their rent and all these things first because that was the logical thought. And music was something that if you had a few extra bob, you spent it on the music. I'm wrong. I was wrong. I realised that in losing Mick. I realised that in losing the people that I've lost over the years. Music welcomes us into the world. Music is the backdrop of our lives. People have songs that they associate moments in their life with that are very important to them. And when you say goodbye to people, music is the backdrop of that as well. Music is is foundational in our lives, and it's necessary as human beings for us emotionally to have. Yeah. So it's not a luxury; it's a necessity. But I do think that. I feel that an awful lot of the work of people has gone out of music. Like you know, you used to, as a songwriter, you had to work really hard on text. You know, lyrics were very important. With Why Me, you know when I wrote Why Me, I remember crying listening to it afterwards in Frank McNamara's studio. Yeah. When Frank put just a piano vocal track, because it said exactly what I wanted. It was pictures. You know, each line was a. You know, sometimes I watch you passing by my window. Yeah. That, you know, like there was an image that went with each thing. And then there was a statement, why me, you know, which was a powerful thing that they had. And I think that, you know, like sort of, it still exists. People like Adele still have things like this. And, you know, and there are artists around, particularly the more independent India artists that are doing stuff like this. But pop songs in general are just... You know, there's a hook, and that's it. And it's like sort of, and you know, like sort of, it's almost embarrassing sometimes to listen to the text of songs. It is. And you know, it's very judgmental for me to say this, but like that, you know, you asked how I feel. This is, and I feel the same thing about the Eurovision. I think when it was always like with the Eurovision that a song wins, and the next year. There's 10 of the songs are the same as the one that you won last year. That's right. Because they think there's a formula. Yeah. Well, when I did Why Me for you that year, I tried to write another song. Louis had called me and asked me about writing the song. Yeah. And everything that I wrote sounded very contrived and sounded like it was formulated to win the Eurovision. Yes, yeah. So I went back to Why Me, which is a song I wrote for me, and then adapted it to you, you know, for you. Like sort of, you know, by changing the line, I keep on wondering why I'm such a lucky guy to My Love Shines in Your Eyes. And the thing was, it was, you know, like I found that I find an awful lot of the stuff even that goes into the Eurovision bland. And it's not, you know, like sort of, and, you know, like, and I'm so sick of hearing people here in Ireland talking about the Eurovision like they know the Eurovision. Every year, the National Song Contest, which is an embarrassment, gets, you know, like we get the song chosen or whatever. It's not Michael Keeley's fault.
No, it's not. I love Michael. I think he does a fine job.
Yeah, it's not his fault, I should say. It's an embarrassment because of the, you know, the first thing I did when I came into your studio, I know I digress and go on to something else. When I came into the pantomime, I looked at the thing. Why don't they do the national song just from here? Yeah, nice small theatre, like sort of just at least give it its own theatre and its own focus. Don't be putting it on as a guest spot on the
which is going to happen again this year.
Well, it's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing considering, and you know this better than anybody, considering what Sweden do. They have a quarter-final, semi-final in a theatre.
Well, there's a rumour. There's a rumour now about me that I might be involved with the one next year.
Excellent.
But like I said, this is so. And I have been the guest on the National Song Contest in in Sweden, and I know
That's
exactly
right.
what you mean. There's 7,000-8,000 people turn up at them.
And they make money. The TV company make money.
But the thing is that even about them making money, the thing is that the whole country has an interest in Eurovision.
Yeah.
It's not lost here, but it's like on the back burner.
That's right.
But the thing is that like sort of go back to the like sort of because when I started talking about the song contest, I got caught away in that. Going back to the Eurovision and this sort of thing, the when I look at the Eurovision that I was involved with and the one that's there at the moment, or the National Song Contest even that I was involved with, to the one that's there now, there is no comparison.
No, there's not.
And a lot of the, a lot of this, when you won the Eurovision in 1980, 87, and it's still in 92, you stayed in the press for months.
You did.
Nowadays, social media is such that you disappear after 3 days. You better get your You better have everything planned to go before you win, and on the off chance then you win, because you're not going to get a chance afterwards. And I think, maybe I'm just getting too old for it. Maybe the thing is that it's just it doesn't. I don't mean to be disrespectful to young, pop writers and things like this, but when I listen to the lyrics of things like Stairway to Heaven or Freddie Mercury's Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you can go way back to, Emerson, Lake, not Neil, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yeah.
All of these, like sort of, and how deep the lyrics were, or like sort of how great they were. And then, like sort of even from a folk point of view, Cat Stevens, David Clayton Thomas, people like this, like, and then.
Jesus, I love David Clayton Thomas. I love that voice.
How they could. He did a solo album. And there was a lovely song that called Friday the 13th Child.
Yeah.
Mother Night, Friday the 13th child. Mother nearly died in pain, and another day over your shoulder. Because he was the singer with
Blood, Sweat and
Blood,
Tears.
Sweat and Tears, yeah.
Oh, I still adore his voice. And Cat Stevens, I still love his songs. Just geniuses.
Yeah.
But do you know something? You saved my life. And I've said this to many people, and I've said it. I'm on the road. I was on the road every night with a band. There was no future. I was getting older with a lot of commitments. And quite honestly, if you hadn't come along in '84 with Terminal 3...
No, Linda, I'm going to clarify this in your head. I gave you a song. I gave you a really good song, and I knew it had a great chance of winning. I knew this. I said it to you at the time, that I think we could win the Eurovision with this song. But I didn't sing it. You sang it. You presented it and you performed. You should take, there's too many people in this country that are willing to not give you credit, so you should take your own credit for this. And the thing is that you made sure that, you were always one of the most professional people I've met from the point of view. If you gave you a song, anybody, Tony Hatch, all the people that I know that worked with you, they all knew that you delivered that song and a consistency with it. That's a professional. That's not somebody who's playing the game of music.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the problem with people, with a lot of the people that are doing it now, that they don't. I played in traditional Irish pubs. I played in the Bailey, not the Bailey, like sort of the Bag It In. I played in the lower deck. I played before.
Yes.
Finbar Fury used to. Finbar, I used to love being with Finbar when the boys played in the Wexford. Finbar would always take me aside afterwards and recite poetry to me for a half an hour afterwards.
I love him, actually. He's a great character. But we served our apprenticeship, you see. That's the thing. And these kids these days, there's no cabarets, there's no variety on TV.
And you can't blame them for that.
No.
This is just
there's
the way
no
the
tops
business
of the
has
town.
gone.
And the amateur dramatic societies are closing up left, right and centre because the finances to put on their shows. But that's where we learned our trade. Yeah. You cannot come into... I couldn't become a plumber tomorrow, for instance.
No.
I'd have to serve an apprenticeship.
No, but
you can't do it in our business.
In the show band days when you had to go around, and like you did Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Thursday if you were lucky, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the big nights or whatever. And you gig, but you had to deliver because the next night you'd want that gig back in a month's time, because Ireland was a country of 3.5 million people.
And if you didn't smile, you lost your gig.
And if you lost your gig, look, this is you've no saxophone player, no female singer, and you won't be back.
You won't be back.
You won't be back. Yeah.
Oh, stop! But now let me ask you something. I know you had Irish managers, then John Salter.
I had Irish mismanagers.
Yes, and then I knew John as well. But for the last about 15 years, how long has Tanya been managing? on you now.
Tanya's over 20 years.
Yeah.
Longer than John.
Yeah.
But, to just went on the thing of managers that I've always, it's something that bothered me as I got older.
Yeah.
Nobody, like back in 1980, Steve Anderson, who managed ABBA,
Yes.
wanted to take over my management.
And you said no.
No, nobody ever told me.
Oh.
Nobody from the office even told me that Stieg was interested. They just
Right.
said no, because they all felt they could do it.
Yeah.
And the people I'm talking about, but I'm not
Yes.
going to
No.
badmouth anybody at this point. But I've always thought if I hadn't been put with Stieg, maybe my life would have gone a completely different way. I'm not complaining about the life.
Yeah.
I'm still having
Yeah.
hit records, and I'm still
Yeah.
traveling all over Europe, and I'm selling out everywhere I work at the moment. And,
Well, I loved Tanya. And
everybody does.
I love the fact that her father.
Unless you're on the wrong side.
Yes.
Okay.
Didn't her father play in James' Last Orchestra?
Over 50 years.
There
He's
you
the
go.
trombone
Yeah.
player. Detlef.
Yeah.
Detlef is great because Detlef is he's done a couple of arrangements for
Is
me.
he still alive?
Oh yeah. He's 80 now.
Oh my
It's his 80th
goodness.
birthday.
Yeah.
But Detlef is great, and Tanya came from a different side of the business. Tanya was in Hamburg, and she was working with a publishing company. A lawyer's company first. She was with a legal company, and then she went to a publishing company, and then she went into the record company. And she used to, when she was with EMI, she was the radio and TV promotion for Robert Palmer,
Yeah.
for what's his name, Robbie Williams,
Yeah.
and people like this. She, she was on the international thing.
And then the two of you obviously just got on very, very well together.
Well, what happened was that Ralph Siegel,
Yes.
who was the producer and manager of Nicole,
Yes.
Ambition Freedom,
Yeah.
headhunted Tanya to look after Nicole for 7 years. She looked after her.
Oh, okay.
And I was working, I got pretty pissed in one day in the studio with Ralph. And he was playing the new Nicole song, and I ended up jamming on it.
All right.
Sort of letting
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he
yeah.
said, "Can we use this?" And I said, "Yeah." So I ended up having to do promotion of that song with Lynn, and then Linda was working on it. We became, not Linda, Tanya was working on it. And then we became friends, and then John retired.
Yes.
From the business and this sort of thing, and I recorded at the same time that John stopped. I recorded an album called Irishman in America. No, The Irish Connection,
Okay.
and it was the first. I wasn't signed to a label, so it was a promoter in Denmark who put up the money for it, and said, "You take this percentage, I'll take this, and we'll get the company to take that percentage." And we needed to sell. It was all traditional Irish whiskey in the jar, Molly Malone. And we needed to sell 12,000 records to cover the cost of the album and the little video we did.
Yeah.
And of course, I played it to Dave Pennyfeather at the time. Dave said, "You wouldn't release that in Ireland. That's an embarrassment." You can't, the usual thing that I get.
Yeah.
The album went to number one in Norway. Was number one for 6 weeks. Went double platinum. Went double platinum in Denmark. Went to number one in Sweden, and completely reinvented me from a touring point of view in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
So don't listen to record companies.
No.
They don't know what they're talking about most of the time. But anyway, the thing is that then I ended up starting to produce and sort of work with producers.
Right.
That one I produced myself. But
And Tanya is involved then at this stage.
that's when
as
Tanya
well.
started. I couldn't get. I worked with one or two managers for a couple of months, and they were awful.
Yeah.
They were dreadful.
Yeah.
And you know me long enough. It's very important that I have a personal relationship
Yeah.
with them. I mean, Louis and myself were friends, still are to this day. I mean, I was in touch with him only a few days ago. Just sent him a Happy New Year's, a couple of jokes, just to make sure that he still remembers who I am.
Oh, he remembers. He's a memory like a bloody elephant, that fella.
I was with Louis for 17, 18 years, and that's the kind of relationships that I have with people. They last for a long time. And then with Tanya wasn't management, Tanya was record company.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to have a wonderful accountants company down in Limerick.
Yes.
And they work with management companies. They're a business advice company as well. And they worked with Tanya and got her through the contract phase and all that sort of thing, and helped her on down that line. And now she's amazing. She's an incredible manager, but she's also a really nice person.
I like her very much, and I love the fact that she loves animals.
Loves animals. She loves them more than me. This is one particular one. She loves. I mean, if I see another picture of a group of puppies, because Baloo, her dog, is now 14.
I know.
And like sort of this, every time we sit down together, like sort of this, we're having a meeting. Somewhere during the meeting, there's a video of puppies come up, you know.
That's the way we are. I mean, I reckon that keeps her sane. Because she deals in a very difficult world when she's looking after your promotions and your bookings and things, and then she comes home to Baloo. But listen, Baloo sleeps with you.
Yeah, I know. I know. And I swore that would never happen when I'm in when I'm in Munich. You had to explain that Baloo is a little small. He's a cross between a Lhasa
Yeah.
Black,
He's gorgeous.
Black ears, and but he's a real character. He has been since the time he was a puppy.
Yeah.
He came with the name Baloo, and he used to sleep on. I'm a size 44 shoe, and I had a pair of brown Ed Hardys, and he used to sleep on them.
No.
That was his bed.
Yeah.
He was given other beds, but he liked my shoes. And one day, he had a backward sneeze. This kind of, and I didn't know what was wrong with him. And he came into the room that I was sleeping in, and I felt very sorry for him. And I said, I'll put him on the end of the bed. And about an hour later, I woke up, and he was sleeping on my knee. And about an hour later, his head was on my chest. And then when I woke up, and about another hour later, the two of us, the heads were on the pillow. I just heard Tanya laugh, and she'd opened the door and seen the two of us were fast asleep together. And since then, he's just had me round his little finger. I mean, we've done TV shows together.
Yeah.
Do you know that we did the Carmen Nabel, which is a very big TV show in Germany.
Right.
This was even when it was before COVID. And I'm known by a lot of the people, the backstage people, like the production people in Germany, for being really proud about being Irish. And sort of I was singing Galway Girl on this show, and I was doing an interview with Carmen, and it's watched by millions of people. And they were trying to do a candid camera. You know, like I didn't know they were filming.
Right.
And so when the dancers, first of all, I don't like, dancers doing the diddly.
Yeah.
Not like sort of proper Irish dancing, but American stage dancing when you're singing something like, oh my God, I don't like that. So they put that out, and they had girls with white T-shirts with "Proud to be British" written on the front of them. And they thought this would get me, and didn't. And then they had an English flag flying behind me. And I kept looking around going, I'm just laughing with the band. And then they put on the Steve Earle version, the backing track, Steve Earle backing track, which is lower than the version that I've done. So I was singing it, and was, what's wrong with this track? Like I said, and I was singing along with it. But they filmed all of this, thinking that they would make me lose it, and they couldn't do it. And eventually they had fog coming on the stage, and a woman coming out cleaning the floor while I was trying to do the rehearsal. And none of it fazed me. I just kept going, laughing about it. So they decided, and unknown to me, and they got Tanya involved. And I don't know whether I ever told you this. I was doing an interview with Carmen, and we were sitting up on the stage, and there was thousands of people in the auditorium where we were doing it. And next thing, in the middle of it, Baloo shoots up through the audience, jumps up straight through the audience, straight up, and jumps on my leg, and sits on my leg, and he's looking at me and looking at the audience. And I knew he was frightened, but I also didn't know. Carmen is afraid of dogs.
Oh God!
And she had a version, a big long sausage, like sort of about a foot long sausage. To feed him, and it was hidden behind her chair. And of course, she, to make friends with him, took the sausage and gave it to him, but the whole sausage.
Oh God!
And I thought he's going to choke. So he had one end of it in his mouth, and this is all live on TV. And I took the other end and put it in my mouth. And Baloo just stopped eating and looked at me, and when I said, "So, Sean, this is my sausage."
Yeah,
what are you?
exactly.
And I was just laughing so much. I eventually broke it up for him and this sort of thing, but.
This definitely wasn't an adult TV show you were making.
No, this definitely was not an adult TV show.
Okay.
But I got up and I went off and sang the song. Tanya came up and told me, she told me, she apologised afterwards because, they had asked her to do this or whatever. They were just trying to get me to lose it. I didn't. Yeah. But thankfully, because I love the little fella.
I know.
He's gorgeous.
No, he's gorgeous. I only ever see photographs of him, obviously.
Yeah, but the funniest thing was on the way back to Munich, I can't remember where we were filming that, but on the way back to Munich, we stopped to get petrol. Yeah. In a tank in a garage, and I hopped out of the car to get a cup of coffee, and Baloo hopped out beside me. Two guys came out of the garage, and there's Baloo. And then they said, there's Johnny Logan.
Oh, yeah. You were second. You were second billing at that point.
That's been consistently happening since then.
That's all right.
I do have 3 sons in Ireland as well.
Oh, sure, I know that. No, you see...
I should mention them,
Animals then...
I love very much.
Animals came into your life recent years with The Masked Singer.
Oh God, that's just this
And you were a deer.
a reindeer called it was a red deer. It was called Adelhert.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was the most intricate costume because, I was an international artist and they
Right.
normally use just, local artists,
Okay.
artists from the country. So they spent a fortune on the costume. But the head of the reindeer, the antlers, were so high and so heavy, the head was so heavy that it kept falling forward.
All right.
And there was a rope around the neck.
Oh, God.
And it was choking me all the time.
Okay.
And the first show we did where I sang Adele's Rolling in the Deep, I was choking all the way through it. But we did it. I did a deal with them. And I said, look, I'm not going to do one show. Look, we're in COVID. We were still in COVID. Here's my fee. I want to be paid this, and I will stay for at least 4 to 5 shows.
Right, okay.
By the time it came to the 4th show, I wanted out.
Oh, God.
Because the costume, I'd already trapped a nerve in my neck, trapped one in my back. Because the only way they could get the head to stay on was to put a body brace on. And they had to tighten it so much to stop the head moving.
Yes,
It was attached to the head. Also, it meant that I had to put on the costume, the head and everything, an hour and 20 minutes before the show, and everybody else was 5-10 minutes.
Oh, sugar.
So I was dripping with sweat, and they had a straw underneath it. There was a little net, and the vocals were live. I had to sing live with it on. And to cut a long story short, I thought if I don't stop this, I'm going to suffer for this for years to come.
Yeah.
So the people were lovely. I loved the people, in the costumes, the people in the production company, the choreographer, everything. They were trying to get me to do these TikTok moves, this kind of thing where you with the hand and all that sort of thing. Now, me and social media, I'm useless, absolutely useless. I did my best.
And did you bail out then after?
After 4 years, I just told them I had to go.
Yeah, you had to.
This is But the thing is. But I loved working with the people. And they had a thing behind the mask, kind of a not a podcast, but a kind of a second TV show, which was an online TV show, which showed about, and that showed the problems that I had with the mask on and all this sort of thing. It was just it was claustrophobic for me. I think it was claustrophobic for everybody, not just for me, but it was particularly claustrophobic for me because also. Like the things you don't think of, like you're not allowed, even if there's a problem, you're not allowed to talk.
Okay.
Because they can't let anybody who's watching it, the cameraman, anybody know who you are.
Yeah.
So, a simple thing like when I went out, they had a little tunnel I had to come through. One of the dancers pushed me out of the way and I bounced into the side of the tunnel. And the mask was down so far that I couldn't see. The eyes were down where the nose should be.
Yeah.
And I was kind of... But the weirdest thing, the character that I played was the most popular. There's a lovely little girl went on to win, Camilla. She was Miss Puss or something like that. She was a cat. But she was great. But the character I played was probably the most popular. Okay. And you win. You're involved 3 Eurovision Song Contests. And you end up like sort of being known as a reindeer, sort of in Belgium, where I won the second one. And it's but what it did do, it's a bit like the McDonald's ads that I did over here years ago. They kind of reinvented me for a whole new generation.
Yes, you see, that's the thing. Because Louis probably was the same with you. This is Louis Walter we're talking about. Right through the years, he used to say to me, "Just say yes."
Yeah, no,
yes, just say yes.
I'm 69 years old, so I just sort of,
yes, I know,
yes,
but
this comes with with restrictions,
Yeah, but it works. Okay, so you say yes, and then you may not be able to do what they wanted you to do, but at least you've tried.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
As you say, every stage gives you a different aspect, and people see a different type of you.
This goes back to what we talked about earlier on, that when we went, you did what you had to do.
Yes.
You worked with Tony Hatch and sort of on this TV series, and you were doing the choir and all this sort of thing. From being in a show band and the front lady, and then you had to go back to doing this again. Yeah. And then you became you were always Linda Martin, but you became Linda Martin, the solo artist and this sort of thing.
But do you know something? It was wonderful. Do you remember Bishop Casey, of course?
Okay, yeah.
Well, we took him
a
off
condom just in case.
We took him off the front page on the way home. Do you remember that?
I can't tell. Did we?
Yeah, we did. All the newspapers.
I'm sure he was delighted.
I'd say he was
Like,
thrilled.
there was a Bruce Springsteen concert or something on. And that wasn't Bruce Springsteen, but there was a concert on. And all the kids were wearing T-shirts, wear a condom just in case.
Oh, jeez.
Forgive me sins for I have fathered, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it got better because there was another person who had a child, another priest who had a child. But Louis Walsh wanted to manage one of these children. You say, I can't remember what the name was, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But
Excuse me.
And he had it all planned out. You know what he's like. So he said, right, I want to manage this young guy. He's good looking, and my first choice of song for him is "Son of a Preacher Man." And they wouldn't.
That doesn't sound a bit like Louis.
They wouldn't go with it anyway. So that little
That was
opportunity
the thing about Louis, though, that people don't, like, could have, because I know success in when you're successful and you come out of Ireland, like, it's great for a while, but then people want to knock you as quickly.
Yes,
There's a certain
yes.
part of our character that does that. One of the things that Louis never got credit for, Louis is a great songsmith. He was a great person.
Oh, yeah.
He had a great ear. I remember that when, back in the snow, and I was driving Vincent, my sister-in-law's ex-husband's car, and doing cabaret gigs, and I remember like sort of, what was it? I was singing Rhinestone Cowboy and Solitaire in those days, and I remember Louis wanted me to sing a song that was by the Osmonds, "Love Me for a Reason."
Yeah. And look what happened.
And I didn't like the Osmonds, so I didn't. But I thought, like, sort of, years later, I saw the hit that Boyzone had.
Yes.
And I thought, like, sort of, fair play, Louis never let go of the idea.
He still has it.
He was always into Dusty Springfield and all of this. Like, sort of, he had a great ear. And still probably has,
Yeah. So what's
the rest of him's not great, but the ear's okay.
The ears are still magic, and if he was here now, God, he'd destroy both of us. He really would. He'd take us
apart. He'd have a go. I can be a bit bitchy myself sometimes.
What are you doing now? I know you told me you're going to take a couple of weeks off for various reasons.
Mick, as you know, passed away in the end of November there. Like, sort of, we buried him the end of November and said goodbye to him. And I worked all the way through December. And
so now this is your grieving time, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. Well, it's not. I'm finding it very hard because I've held it back. I've known that because Mick hasn't been well for a while. I loved Mick, like, sort of so much, and we were so close that I find it very hard. I'm still calling him, still, sort of, when there's something happens, I want to, contact him and tell him. And I know what a lot of people will understand, sympathise with that. But I don't think I will ever get over losing Mick. And I'm just, at the moment, it's more trying to find a way to cry it out, to take the moments that I can. But I've stopped it for a month, and it's difficult. It comes. It wells up and it comes out.
Absolutely. And everybody deals with grief in so many different ways. See, there's no formula. Yeah. You just have to deal with it.
I don't want to live without him. I think, I want him to be in me and part of me for the rest of my life.
So, are you going back to work maybe February?
I have a TV show to do in Switzerland in February, and I have at least 3 concerts. I'm booked out till 2025 with concerts. Like, I have shows all over Europe. I have, thankfully, one of the things about winning the Eurovision 3 times in the time when I won it, and this sort of thing, is that every time the Eurovision comes around, and like, sort of, we're available for work. Yeah, people are looking for people that people can associate the Eurovision. Yeah, but in my case, I've also been lucky enough to establish everywhere I work in Scandinavia now. I work with guys like Robert Wells. Yeah, who's the most amazing musician, and I worked with last year. I started gigging with the Night of the Proms Orchestra, doing music, the John Miles songs, and bit by bit. Orchestras have opened up all over Europe. I'm just singing with these, but also I work with the New Beast Band in Belgium and in Holland, and I don't know how to say this without it sounding egotistical, and I don't mean it this way. I'm really, really good at what I do now.
I know that,
and I think that the thing is that it's I'm better than most of the people that are around, and as such, I'm in demand, and when people get me. they're grateful to have me.
Yeah.
And whereas before they used to book me.
Yeah.
Now it's
no,
like,
no, I get all that because I've seen you in action too many times, and I hate you because you're so good.
And I sing, and I sing, and I sing too. Okay.
I'm only joking. You know, it's just flashed into my mind. Oh Jesus, no, nothing like that.
Don't follow that up.
You coming down the steps of the plane after What's Another Year, and there's Louis Walsh and Shea Healy and Jim Hand and all these other people that we've lost. And that moment, you said earlier on that it was always the band I was in, Chips, and then there was you down the scale. And I remember that moment, and I thought, well, I don't know what he's talking about now because we'll be following his shirt tails for a long, long time. But that moment when you cut down the steps and the crowds were there to welcome you, that must have been incredible.
After each one of them, I mean, even when we came back with, you were kind enough to come to Ashburn in 92, and all the people were in the field and this sort of thing. It's just, those memories stay with you forever.
They do.
And that nobody can ever take that away from either one of us. But the thing is that the Eurovisions were wonderful, and I'm still grateful that they're part of my life, a huge part of my life. But there's an awful lot of other, like I over the years have built a band in Denmark, particularly. Denmark is where my resident band is.
Okay.
And they're amazing. They're not just good. They're like family to me. And whenever I come to work in Ireland, I work with Eugene McCarthy. And Maeve and Aileen and all the guys and Carol and all the others that are in that. And I love working with them. I there's a standard of musician that I have now, and I finally understand what Cliff Richard used to say. Cliff Richard used to say, some of the people asked him, what was the secret of so long having the longevity of success? And he said, always surround yourself with the best.
Yeah. And
it took me a lifetime to realise that. I think Shea said to me after 87, he says, Sean, you're a great man, like sort of to have gone through these 2 Eurovisions and all that stuff that happened in 80 and for it not to affect you. But the reality of it really did affect me.
Yes.
And it was difficult to deal with mentally, even physically sometimes. And it left me with an awful lot of hang-ups.
Yeah.
And, people accused me of, in 1980, of the world revolving around me rather than me being part of the world and whatever. But the thing was, I wasn't given. Looking back now as a 25-year-old young man, I realised that I had no chance, because all that surrounded me were the problems that I had.
Yeah.
And and I was having to deal with them because the people around me weren't dealing with them. And even when it came to the follow-up record to What's Another Year, it was eventually me that got into the studio. I had to go to Maurice Oberstein.
I remember it.
Maurice Oberstein was up in his office, the managing director of Sony, and I was having a meeting with Muff Winwood and Nicky Graham in the A&R department, and I left the meeting on the pretense I was going to the toilet, and I went up to Obi's office. And Obi said, come on, I'm going down. And Obi went down, took the diary in front of the two of them, went, that's gone. He's recording then.
Right.
That's how it got recorded. It was that bad. But I mean, from my point of view, my management didn't do anything to put it forward. And it's...
But you see, without knocking anybody, I totally get that. They wouldn't have known what to do.
No, and
that's the problem.
I don't blame them for that, but what I do blame them for, even to this day, is for not giving me to Stieg Andersen or to somebody who did know what they were doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And trying to hold on to it. I didn't. That was a problem I had throughout most of the 80s. But looking back now, I'm in a situation where I'm okay financially. I have a wonderful family. I have a wonderful life that I have.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by wonderful musicians. I still have the friends like yourself that I had in the 80s. Maxi, we're still in touch with each other, and the little things that when I was younger that I took for granted are now very important to me, like friendship, like.
Tell me something.
Like animals,
Yeah, tell me something for our listeners and our viewers, of course, that they won't know about Johnny Logan.
They won't know about me. Well, I was probably the worst electrician to ever come out of Ireland. That's probably just.
So Sparks was never your middle name.
No, I was dreadful. I was suspended. I went to Kevin Street and I was suspended for 3 months by Pearl Electric for getting engaged, taking 2 days off to get engaged.
No way.
I was kicked off a building site in Arbor Hill Prison because my language was too colourful. I was singing Danny Boy and things like this, but I'm putting expletives in between.
Yeah. So these are all secrets now, listeners and viewers.
I think if there is a secret, and any secret that I would have, I think most of my life is an open book. I think
maybe you're too open. Do you know that, Johnny?
Maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
I remember Chris Morrison saying that the CMO who looked after Blur and people like that saying to me, he said, when people give you an answer, don't always give the honest answer. And don't give them too much information.
Fabricate.
Try to hold back a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was never able to do that, you know.
No, you just go for it. I know that.
If I just open my mouth and it piles out, you know. I said, I wish I could say it doesn't, but it does, you know.
Right. You're 16 years of age. You're in your dad's pub, possibly it's still at that time. You're going to be an electrician. What would you do different, and what would you tell yourself at that stage, if you could?
I'm not sure, like sort of this, what would I tell myself at 16? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah, okay, I get that.
Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Believe in yourself. Make your own decisions. Because you can live with decisions when they're your decisions and they're wrong. But you can't live with other people's decisions when they're wrong. And that's what I had to do for many years.
Yeah.
Faith in yourself. I was always a very loyal person. I was always, you know,
I know that. I know that.
Close to people that I stayed with for lifetimes. I don't have overnight friends. Yeah. I think be yourself. For years, I tried to be Johnny Logan, and I think when my mother died, Mick and myself were over saying goodbye to her in Australia, and we came back and we went straight into a tour with a Rosanna band in Sweden.
Yeah.
And we did 29 shows in 31 days, 2-hour concerts in churches and things like this. And I hadn't sung You Raise Me Up because, you know, I was the original singer.
Yes, I know that.
The original person that did that. I hadn't sung it because I felt very hurt about, you know, never being given, not about not being the original, you know, the first person the record was put out with, but not getting the credit for what I did. I felt very hurt about that. So I didn't sing it and refused to. And when I had the album with the #1 album all over Scandinavia with the Irish Connection, Secret Garden asked me to go on tour of China with them. And I said, no, I'm #1 now. No, go away. Which was stupid, I suppose, but it was just I was hurt. But the thing is, I think I lost my train when I started thinking about that. And I thought
well, obviously it's not something that you dwell on because all of us make mistakes as we go through life.
I think though that the thing was that when I did the thing with Rosanna, that was the thing in Sweden, the dates in. We played a lot of churches, and the reason I was explaining, I started singing You Raise Me Up.
Yes.
I sang it for my mother on every show. And I couldn't ignore the fact that my mother had passed away. But I didn't want to make it a depressing thing or down. So I told funny stories about my mother. Like sort of, you know, I just said goodbye to my mother. But before every show, which is the thing I do, I pray.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be the most religious person in the world, but I do believe, you know, I do pray and I do speak to my father, and I like to and Mick now, and my younger brother Eamon and all these people before I sing every time, and I bring them on stage with me.
Right.
And I think that when I did those shows, something happened. I stopped. By talking to them about my mother and about something that was really honest, people saw me. They didn't see Johnny Logan. They saw me.
Yes.
And we were selling CDs at the gig. I wasn't. There was the management company.
Yeah.
The company that toured us. And the album went to number 3 in the Swedish charts on sales in the churches alone.
Wow.
And everywhere we went, it was totally sold out because word and mouth filled out.
Yeah. Because everybody can associate with it because we've all lost people that are very close to us.
But I think it was not... But it wasn't even just talking about my mother. It was the fun. Like my mother always had false teeth. We never saw them. We never saw. But people from that generation, like sort of, but we never saw. My mother used to just appear in the morning with them in, and she'd go to bed, and we never saw them. And then, but obviously my mother and father, you know, knew each. Yeah. And my father used to wind my mother up because he was a dairyman and she was Kilkenny, and she was fiery. My mother,
Yeah.
very fiery. And he used to say to her, like, sort of, you came over, your people came over with the pirates from Spain. The only reason you married me was to get some blue blood. And my mother would, like, that's it, I've had enough. And, she'd grit her teeth and she said, that's it, I'm leaving you. And my dad would turn with a laughter and said, well, give me back the teeth. I paid for the teeth. Give me the teeth.
I just was going to strangle him.
And yeah, I know, but that, that was the kind of thing I talked about. And sort of this,
Yeah.
not about her dying, about her living, I talked about. And how funny she was. And I think somewhere in that, I came out. And I think if I was to give that advice to a 16-year-old me, it would be yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Don't try to be, no matter. I remember Tommy Hayden once saying to me, you should mention the famous people that you met and all this sort of thing when you're on stage. And I did it once or twice, and then I was embarrassed doing it.
Yeah.
And because that wasn't me.
No.
And it's this is and to be honest, probably the most famous person I met was probably one of the most embarrassing moments. I was in a studio in London, in the near Shepherd's Bush. I was working with Chris Neal at the time, and in those days we didn't have mobile phones.
That's right.
They were new. Maybe Louis probably had one.
Oh, yeah.
Louis had the first of everything that came out. But there was a phone on the wall in the games room where everybody went to relax between takes, and I was on the phone to Ailish, and I sort of called to just check in, see how things are going or whatever. And next thing I heard this voice behind me saying, "You going to be long?" And I turned around, Paul McCartney was standing behind me saying, "What this is?" And he says, and he was asking me, "Am I going to be long?" Because it was the only phone in the room.
Wow.
And of course, what did I do? In full voice said to Ailish, "Guess who's behind me? Guess who's standing behind me?" And I'm like, the thing that you think you'd never do.
Yeah.
And I looked around and he was laughing at me. And
Yeah,
that's what
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was.
It just seemed like a very...
Did you cross paths with him ever again?
Yeah, a couple of times. And you know who was a lovely, and I'm not name dropping. Well, I probably am, but I don't mean. Cliff Richard was lovely.
Yeah.
Really lovely. You probably met him yourself, and he's a lovely human being, lovely person.
I find most people are nice if you get away from the public persona.
Yeah. I remember that when we did thoughtful.
Yeah.
When I was doing the live at Her Majesty's request or the performance, and you had to be invited by the royal family. You got an official document by the royal family to come and do this. And it was in the big theatre in Dublin or in London.
Albert Hall?
No, not the theatre just near the Carnaby Road.
Any one of them, Jays.
It's the famous one. It'll come into my head. But I remember, like, you were told to bow to the Queen first and then bow to the audience and whatever. And then afterwards, when I met the Queen, you were told not to talk to her, that she had to speak to you. And when you spoke back to her, address her as ma'am. You had all these kind of things that you had to do.
And you didn't stick to one of them?
I did actually behave because I felt I was representing Ireland. So I really wanted to make the people home proud. But I remember, the way when you leave a stage like a big theatre,
Palladium. The Palladium.
Yeah, Palladium. That was it. Yeah, thank you. And when you leave the stage on the side, suddenly you walk off from all the lights into pitch black.
That's right.
And I just heard this Northern English version saying to me, "Hey man, that was great," and it was Joe Cocker. And I'd grown up with Joe Cocker. My friends and all this sort of thing. And it's just, in general, all of the people that I've met, the famous people, Tom Jones, all of these people, they're very lovely.
Yes.
And they're an example.
Yeah.
People like myself and to another generation that are coming. If you really want to know what it's like to be great and why they're great, it's because they still have their feet where they came from.
Yeah. Now, they probably all went through that phase of,
I'm sure.
Well, cock of the walk, I know everything, and dismissing people, but you learn and you value your friends. I mean, when you think about it, I live in my house because of your sister-in-law.
She found Marion.
Marion, and for people who don't know that,
Marion used to work with Paul Grimes.
Johnny he died a couple of years ago, very sadly. Yeah. But
I was at the funeral.
Johnny's sister-in-law was Marion Cullen, and she worked for Paul Grimes' estate agent.
She still is Marion Cullen.
She still is, yeah. And she knew I wanted to move out of an apartment in Dublin because I'd started to gather up dogs and things like that. And she says, "Linda, I'm going to tell you about this place. It's not in the market yet." So I went out with Carol.
She told you, she gave you a heads up, yeah.
She did. So I went out on, this is the God's honest truth, I went out on the Monday night with Carol. And the guy who owned it needed to get out quick.
Yeah.
And he produced a bottle. I don't know what the bottle was, but anyway, we started to have a few little drinkies.
Yeah.
And by Wednesday, I owned it.
And it's lovely. I've been up there, and it's you.
I know that.
Every time I go in there, that I've been in there, it's definitely you.
Yeah, but normal people take a few days to think about it. But if drink hadn't been involved, etc., 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 it would never have happened. But it's thanks to Marion, and it's thanks to you, because if you were Marion's brother-in-law, well, then sure, it wouldn't have happened.
It's that the world is like that, though.
Yeah.
You know, if Louis wasn't around, we wouldn't, have become close friends.
Correct. And he's sitting sunning his backside in Miami as we speak.
Yeah, he sent me a text saying, I'm in Miami, the weather's lovely, he said. What you wanted to say was, would you ever feck off?
I know.
I enjoy it, Louis,
Yeah, enjoy the escapades we went through over the years. But great, I've great memories.
Louis and myself laughed so much. I'm sure this, and he was...
a devil.
Yeah, a devil, but a very lovable devil.
Yes.
And, his whole family, I remember his mum and dad, and this, all down in Kilchimach,
they're still there.
Yeah.
They're all still there, and his mommy's still alive.
Yeah, I think all of those things, all of the people from that particular, Carol Hannah, all of us, they all sort of were part of who we became.
Yeah.
And they're all
true.
still part
it's
of that.
True. Absolutely.
I mean, Carol and myself, Carol came to the gig, the one I did in Vicar Street, the last one.
Yeah.
And I ended up, I did What's Another Year, and I Fanon Healy, Shay's son, and he'd brought some friends. And it's like the kind of thing that you don't expect. Carol said, sing What's Another Year for me. So I started introducing What's Another Year. And I started introducing and saying, this is for Carol. And I could feel myself welling up. And I just went, and I said, and I suddenly just said, turned to Hugh, and he said, begin it. Start, man.
Just start.
Start. Because once I'm singing, I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah.
That's it.
Now, when are you writing the duet for you and me to go back to Eurovision? I'd be a very wealthy woman if I'd money for every time I'm asked that. No, and I'm being honest with you.
It's the thing is, I get asked all the time, am I taking part in it again? I don't think it's for me anymore. The thing is that the Eurovision Song Contest, as it is now, what I love doing is, the one that we did together at once, the one in Amsterdam.
Yes.
In the Ziggo I've done that quite a few times.
Yeah.
And the last time, Mick had just passed. And I was doing it in, and Rylan Clark. Was backstage.
Okay.
And what a lovable person.
He's lovely, isn't he?
I never thought that I'd instantly like someone
he's
that
lovely.
much again. From a presenting point of view. But he's a very, very lovable person, really kind. And gave me a big hug and a kiss after the thing was finished. And I think that'll probably be on. If it wasn't on New Year's Eve or New Year's...
Yeah, we'll see it soon.
You'll see it soon. It'll be shown.
We'll see it soon.
But that's... And I meet Eurovision people at that show. Like, who was that? The Bobby Socks.
Hannah,
Hannah and Lisbeth were there.
Yeah.
And Conchita. Conchita was there. And the next time that I met Conchita was just there in December.
Yeah.
November, December. And it was lovely.
Absolutely.
Lovely, really nice person.
I agree with you.
And that's the first time we had a chat. And it was only just in the lift, the two of us. And we just gave each other a hug. And in general, it's a club we're in, Linda.
Yeah, I know
it's
that.
like sort of this, when you meet people, this is, and because
it's like a family.
You meet Brotherhood of Man, you meet sort of a Bucks Fizz, all of these people, and they're all from our time and that sort of thing. But every time we meet each other, it's like we only saw each other last week or whatever.
It's true. It's true. No, they're a nice community, and I keep saying we're the mothers and fathers, and all the fans are the children. Yeah. But it's a lovely community, and it involves all sorts. Doesn't matter creed, colour, profession. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, and it's something that spread its wings all over the world. And the thing is that, I find myself, in New York, walking down a road and somebody saying, "Are you Johnny Logan?" Yeah. The weirdest one was I was in Manchester in the London City Airport, coming through there, and there's a guy working in the in the duty free. Yeah. And he said to me, he stopped me and said, "Are you Johnny Logan?" Yeah. And he was a real young guy, and I said, "Yeah." He said, "I recognised your voice when you were talking." I said, "What?" God. The sound of your voice.
Yeah. You tell me this. I have a few quick questions to ask you. Right. You answered the first one a long time ago. Have you shared the bed with your dog? And you have?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Yes, with
more
Baloo.
than once. It's more a couch these days because he's now 14 and he likes his own beds and this and that. But he did get me through COVID. I mean, like sort of
There
this.
you go.
Because a lot of the time when I was in Munich, I'd be in the same house as Tanya or something like that, and you know, Tanya's a very strong personality, and so am I. We butt heads or whatever.
Yeah.
And Baloo would just come over and look at me and sort of go like, I think it's time for a walk. Let's go out for a walk.
Yeah. If you were a dog, what sort of a dog would you like to be?
That's a weird one.
Well,
I'd like to be Baloo because he's so nurtured and fed and well fed,
Yes.
looked after by Tanya.
Okay.
He's spoiled rotten. I mean, he's got
that's
about
the way it should be.
five beds.
Yeah, excellent.
His choice of menu, you know.
What's one thing about a dog's life that you'd like to have? Like, for instance, napping all day, eating treats, long walks. What?
What I'd like to have all day, being snuggled.
Yeah, all right.
Being snuggled.
Yeah. What's the funniest thing Baloo's ever done?
The TV show was one of
The TV show. Okay.
TV show that
okay.
we talked about, but there's
And I hope it doesn't happen for a long time yet. But do you think when Baloo goes to doggy heaven, Tanya is going to replace him?
She's not sure, but I'm sure she will.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's not something that I even, she talks about it sometimes. I can't. Even my family back Eilish and the boys back here, they all know. Like sort of the Baloo has a place in my heart.
Yes, absolutely. And on my behalf, if it does happen, like I say, not for a long time yet, make her go to a rescue, will you?
A rescue.
Yeah.
This is, and if I can say at this point, like sort of, because I know your involvement with animals over the years, I know how much they mean to you. I really, really hope that people within the within the music within our community and this sort of thing get behind you and help you, as well as other people involved in this, to get this dog hub or whatever. Is that what you're calling it, the dog hub?
The Dublin Dog Hub. Yeah,
the Dublin Dog.
I'm almost there. I'm almost there.
Because it's just, I think only since I got to know Baloo as an adult, do I realise how important an animal is in your life, and also that when you go and you get an animal, it's not something for overnight or for next week or whatever. It's a life commitment, like a child, because they have their own personalities, they have their own characters, and there's so much joy to be found in them, and so much company that it's really, really important that, like, sort of, this before you go in. This is not, where some people have children just because they think we're married now, we should have children.
Yes.
And we should get a dog because we'd like sort of a dog would be good, and then sort of, but they don't bother looking after it.
No.
The dog. I mean, the amount of money that Tanya spends on Baloo, on medical stuff.
Absolutely.
And just checking out stuff, like sort of, even just on vets bills and stuff like this. Let alone, I mean, she actually has a pram that she pushes Baloo around.
When
he doesn't like to walk anymore.
I know.
Especially in the city centre when there's too many people. He gets in.
That's good because he's getting the air about.
What's so funny is he sits and he's glaring, just looking out over the top, and then he sees another dog walk by.
Yeah.
And
it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
But she also has one of these packs, in front that you carry him on the front, on her chest.
No, he wouldn't be the lightest dog in the world.
No, she doesn't use that so much because of that reason. But the pram when she goes to the outlet or shopping, she puts him in the pram and carries that,
Perfect for you now when you get a bit older.
Yeah, to sit in the pram.
Yeah, and she can
get in the pram.
Around.
Yeah, that's true. Me and Baloo sit in the pram.
She can push you around a bit as well.
I think I've got my sons to whip me.
Oh, Lord. They whip. Yeah.
There's Adam and these days between Adam, Fionn and Jack. Yeah. Jack's turned into the most amazing musician.
Yeah, is he still going to be on the road with you?
No, he doesn't work with me. Jack plays with his own bands.
Oh, I thought he was on the road permanently.
No, he was over. He was over in America. They did a couple of gigs in New York.
Right.
And they did Halloween, I think, in Harlem.
Okay.
5 guys from the west coast of Ireland, white Irish guys, playing in a jazz funk club, and they decided to dress up, and they had to put on costumes. And Jack has a big long beard, and he decided to go as Abraham Lincoln, so he put a top hat on, shaved off the moustache, and shaped the beard. And he called me the next day and he says, I think I made a mistake, Dad. I said, why is that? He says, we're flying home today and I look like a terrorist. An Afghan terrorist with it. And I took the hat off.
Oh,
but he dwarfs me as a guitar player. He's I went to watch him in Wigwam last week. They were playing and he was playing with his band from I can't remember, the funk, though, It's I can't remember the name of the band.
Yeah.
There's three brothers.
Okay.
Ben, Aidan, and Tom, and then there's Sam and Sam, the bass player, and Jack, and they're phenomenal. Like I said, this. I mean, Jack is as a musician where both myself and Mick should have been. I developed into a songwriter rather than as a musician.
Okay. Are they writing songs?
Jack writes, but I think he's more a session guitar player. And
Okay.
I think he will develop because he's 31. He's got a long time to go.
Yeah.
But he's doing great. And then Fiona's designing computer games for a company in America, and Adam is working for Winco next door. He's a project manager, he's
Cool.
European development and this sort of
So
thing.
all is good.
They're all doing great. He's
Yeah.
married to the eldest one. Adam is married to Gillian
Yes.
O'Dowd. Like sort of Gillian Sherrard now, but from Cavan. And it's great watching them because the sense of humour is transferred.
All right. Okay.
Into the slagging,
Yeah.
the slagging sense of humour. But they gang up on me.
Oh, good.
They pick on me, sort of 6'2" of me, and like sort of I get a slagging about my hair and about the clothes that I wear and everything.
That's all right.
It's probably something that I deserve anyway.
I think that's love. I think that's part and parcel of loving.
It's love, and
it gives them
great pleasure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you being here today has given me great pleasure. I have to say.
It's always a pleasure to spend time in your company.
Thank you so much for everything.
And not Linda.
And your friendship is the bottom line. But thank you for everything else that went around it.
No, we will always be friends, and that's like sort of this. And as I said to you before, you won the, like sort of in the Euro. You just take credit for what you did in the Eurovision. And I'll take credit for what I did. You take credit for what you did.
Do you remember Terry Wogan being paid by the BBC? But he was saying, "Yes, they're going to win, but don't tell them. They're paying my wages." And the head of the EBU then was Christian Clausen.
Yeah.
And in the castle that night, he came over. He says, "I think you are going to win now."
Yeah, I didn't know that was going on.
Yeah.
I just knew that the song was a real song. It was a real emotion, real feeling.
Yeah.
And it wasn't contrived. And I knew, you see, people in general, Linda, are the same. We all have the same kind of emotions. We love, we hate, we jealous. We grieve, And the thing is that it's once you touch into that, and with honesty, people relate to it.
Yeah, they do.
And so
they do.
that will have an effect. I mean, and that's the power of a lyric. I mean, Why Me was also a strong song.
Absolutely.
But the lyric was also what sold it.
The lyrics are important.
What always sticks in my head was when I was doing the demo of Why Me before I gave it to you, was the end. We couldn't figure out how to end.
I remember that.
And I was thinking about this high note at the end, and I just that doesn't work. Just whisper, Why
Just
Me?
whisper, yeah.
And it was when we look back on it, it was
worked.
perfect.
It worked.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, it worked. Thanks so much, Sean.
And
Johnny. Yeah, you see, I knew I'd fall into that. You see that? But anyway, no, listen, I wish you well. I wish you well with your health,
Thank you.
work.
Get rid of this cough, I'll be fine.
Yeah, get rid of it because it's a little bit tricky. I know loads of people who have it, but we'll see each other soon.
Yeah, absolutely. We're neighbours here.
I know that, but we need to go out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say hi to Ronan for me. This, of course.
Definitely. Maybe even the cinnamon place. You remember the Indian cinnamon garden where you nearly burnt the backside off me because you told me to eat that spicy curry. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I got a problem with. I love really hot stuff.
Oh Christ.
You know what's also great? There's a place on Capel Street, I think, called it's New Orleans food.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll do that. But in the meantime, safe home, mind yourself, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, love you, darling.
Love you.
And bye-bye, Speedy. Bye-bye, Speedy.
Dog Almighty is brought to you by Tesco. So for a happy and healthy pet, shop online or in store at the Tesco Pet Shop for all your furry friends' needs. If you've been listening, please give the podcast a 5-star review and a following.